It's Thursday, July 2nd, 2020. Welcome to Digital Trends Live. We're about to start. Here are some of the topics we are going to cover today. We've got a leak, folks, of the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. We'll take a look at that and discuss what we can expect from the next literally biggest phone from Samsung. Executive producer and showrunner of Happily Ever After Avatar will be joining us to chat about the creation of her show, which is running on HBO Max. That's Allison Schermerhorn, by the way. Lisa Marie Segarra will be joining us to talk about gaming, specifically some interesting stuff around the Xbox Series X and NBA 2K1. Shout out Damian Lillard. And Rick Marshall joins us for Real News. And folks, we got to talk about Hamilton coming up to Disney Plus. I'm also going to force him to talk about Beavis and Butthead. All of that coming right up on Digital Trends Live. Welcome, everybody. I am not Greg Nibbler. Greg Nibbler is out on assignment. I am Caleb Dennison in his stead, covering for him as he celebrates his birthday. Yes, that's his assignment. And of course, there's lots going on. You can catch us on all of the platforms. You're watching on one of them right now, as a matter of fact. So let's dive right into the news. Get started with this Samsung leak. We've got a video here of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. This is the first time that we've actually seen the phone. These are rendered images. What we learned from this is that there will indeed be a 3-camera array and a new focus sensor. And that focus sensor attempts to solve some of the problems that we've seen from the latest Samsung phones with getting the autofocus just right. So we anticipate that will be fixed. Now, we will not see the ridiculous 100 times zoom that we've seen on the Galaxy S20. That's not going to be present in this phone. But we have noted that, as we've seen with leaks of cases for this phone, that the power and volume buttons will be moved to the right-hand side of the phone. And take a look at this color. It's called bronze, but it's looking kind of pink. Not exactly hot pink, but it definitely has an interesting look to it. So we'll be interested to see how it looks when it actually gets revealed. Of course, S Pen is in the house, literally. It gets housed right in the phone, as it always has been. We are expecting this later this year. Samsung will probably roll out an event, probably virtually, just like Apple did with WWDC. So we're looking very much forward to seeing what this new phone is all about. Again, it will be the biggest phone from Samsung, literally and figuratively. We expect it to replace the Note 10, which is currently at the top of our Android phone list. Next topic I want to talk about is Apple. Apple is reclosing some 30 retail stores. This is in addition to some 47 stores that it had already closed due to a surge in the coronavirus pandemic, which totally makes sense. The closings are announced for Wednesday in the Florida area, as well as Los Angeles. These are going to be the last of the Florida stores that are still open, getting closed. And of course, there's some in the Los Angeles area that are also being closed. Fortunately for Apple, it can't afford to do this. Obviously, this is an expensive thing for them to do, shutting down their stores. They will, of course, continue online operations as well as online support. But if you live near an Apple store and you were hoping to go in there to get your device repaired or talk to a genius, I'm afraid that is off the table for now. Again, Apple closing 30 more stores after it has already closed 47 due to the coronavirus pandemic. Next topic I want to address with you: PlayStation has halted advertisements on both Facebook and Instagram. They are joining the boycott, the Stop for Hate for Profit boycott, which basically is, they're joining Unilever, Coke, Starbucks, Diageo, Verizon, and a host of others in pulling their ads from Facebook due to the fact that Facebook has basically acted as a platform for bad faith actors who are targeting marginalized groups, and they don't want their ads associated with that. That's a big enough story on its own. However, it goes a little bit further. It turns out that Zuckerberg at Facebook seems to be thumbing his nose at this situation. According to the information, Mark Zuckerberg told employees last week that Facebook was not gonna change. That is a quote. In response to the growing advertiser boycott over the hate speech policies, Zuckerberg called the boycott a reputational issue, saying it was threatened only a small percent of Facebook's revenue and predicted advertisers would return to the platform soon enough. So basically, what we're seeing there is Zuckerberg really just holding the line, not budging on this stuff, and figuring that everything is going to be back to normal soon enough. Again, Facebook can afford to do that, and so they're sticking with it. Obviously, not a great look for Facebook as advertisers start to pull out of advertising on Facebook in opposition. Let's see. Let's move on to Dark Sky. If you're a fan of Dark Sky, the weather app, and you are also an Android user, you probably noticed that you no longer have the app. Actually, you may actually have the app still, but if you go to the Google Play Store, you can't get it anymore. And if the app is on your Android device, it's going to cease functioning at August 1st, is the notice I just got on my Dark Sky app. So that's unfortunate. That's an app that a lot of people really enjoyed. It was their favorite weather app. Apple purchased Dark Sky, which is why it is no longer available to be used on Android devices. And they did that because they really wanted to be part of Apple's ecosystem, I suspect, but they also agree that Apple's secure platform is a better place for their app. So if you no longer have access to Dark Sky and you want to check out something more, we have a full list at digitaltrends.com of great Dark Sky alternatives. The Weather Underground is one of my personal favorites. The Weather Channel is something that I use all the time. There's also one called Funny Weather, and just a little bit of a disclaimer here. It is basically if your foul-mouthed friend was reading you the weather, that's what it looks like on that app. So if you decide to go check that out, expect a little bit of profanity associated with it. And that, my friends, leads us to the product of the day.
Hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
Our deal of the day today is the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active 2. Buy it. Just get it. That's all you need to know. I'm kidding. There's more that you need to know. This is one of our favorite smartwatches, specifically for fitness. Obviously, it's the Active Watch 2. It's got a great design and robust build quality that you would expect from Samsung. It automatically tracks all your workouts, monitors your heart rate, keeps an eye on your location via GPS and GLONASS tracking. That would be global navigation and satellite tracking. Running coach that gives you real-time advice every step of the way so you know exactly what to do to improve your best time. It's got an easy to read display in just about all lighting conditions, a 2-day battery if you use it lightly, but really shouldn't you be getting out there and using it a lot? But you can also scroll Twitter on a watch, among many other different smartwatch attributes. We gave it a 4 out of 5 stars in our review, which is really all you need to know. Check it out. This is the best deal that you can get on this watch right now. We found it at B&H Photo. It's on sale for about $100 off the retail price, which is currently priced at $229.99. Let's just call it $230. That's way cheaper than you'll find anywhere else on the internet. And you can get it by clicking on the link that you see below or in the description on whatever platform you are watching this morning. That's our rundown of the news today. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with Allison Schermerhorn, the showrunner and executive producer of Happily Ever Avatar, to find out how in the heck did they go about making that show. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison here for Greg Nibbler while he's out celebrating his birthday, flying by the seat of my pants. How does he do this every day? I have no idea. At this time, we're going to transition to speaking with Allison Schermerhorn. She is the showrunner and executive producer of Happily Ever After Avatar. Excuse me, I just couldn't get that out on HBO Max. If you've got an HBO Max subscription, you're probably familiar with this show. Welcome, Allison. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. So, to get started, tell us a little bit about this show for anybody who may not be familiar with it.
Well, basically, I think it should attract a wide range of viewers because it's got something for obviously people who are, gamers, because all of the couples that we're following along this journey, it's documentary, following couples that actually met online playing video games, whether it was World of Warcraft, League of Legends, or Elder Scrolls Online. Those are the three games that are three couples met. So they actually met online as opposed to in person. When they originally started talking to each other, and they're all at three different stages in their relationships. And we basically, took our camera crew out there across the country and followed each one of these couples to see how, their relationships were progressing and any, you know, travails they had along the way. One couple we even see meet for the very first time on camera, which is really exciting.
I was just about to ask if any of these couples had met before they got involved with the show. So one of those couples had actually never seen each other, or at least been face to face with each other before they got involved with the show. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, the Amadeus and Caroline. Their extent of communication until our show came in the mix was, they met corresponding while playing a video game, just their avatars talking to each other. And they'd video chatted, emailed, texted, talked on the phone, all that kind of thing, but did not meet in person until our cameras were there
Oh my
capturing.
goodness.
So,
What
yeah,
a
that
way.
was that
What a
was
way to
really
meet.
cool to see, and I'm sure it was extremely nerve-wracking for them because it was, sort of like a blind date, but like with cameras following you, and
Wow.
all that.
No,
So
no pressure, right? I
no,
mean,
none at all.
that's amazing. So this, I gather, is not your first unscripted show. You've done unscripted sort of docuseries like this before.
Yeah, I've worked in, unscripted television, or, some people call it reality television, for almost 2 decades now. I primarily specialize in docu-series, but I've done, all kinds of shows, but I really, really like the ones where, as opposed to, competition shows and things like that are great, but I really just like following people around and seeing, what's kind of unfolding in their everyday lives and how that
Right.
affects them. And
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to wonder how it is that you got involved with this particular project. Had it already been conceived of, or did you conceive of it and bring it to HBO? I mean, how did you get involved here?
it actually had already been in the stages of development when I came on board. Stage 13 and Magical Elves partnered together to bring this to HBO Max. And I had worked for Magical Elves in the past previously. So that's kind of how I got involved. And I'm a gamer myself, so I think they just immediately thought of me for that. So
That's fantastic. So, I mean, when we watch the show, obviously we're seeing the well edited, well produced storytelling version of the show. But I'm curious what it's like to actually be there when you're making it. Like, especially, I mean, we can talk about the couple that first met with all the cameras rolling. What was it like to actually make this show and be present for the couples being together and going through their lives together?
Well, it was fun in the sense of, even while you're working on it, you're also kind of a fly on the wall, seeing things unfolding, especially the big meetup that they had. We had the three couples that we have, Jake and Chelsea, Nick and Tony, and Amadeus and Caroline. They were, spread out all across the country, in California, Kansas, Connecticut, and Texas. So just a lot of juggling, a lot of moving parts, but that's pretty par for the course in these types of shows. But you know, we basically followed them doing stuff that they normally would do in their everyday lives, whether it's you know, um, playing video games or going on, dates or going to breakfast or, um, in Amadeus and Caroline's, they're the ones who met, in person for the very first time on our show. We basically, followed their first date, their first sleepover, it's almost I wouldn't say it's like a soap opera, but it's there's I think there's a lot in there for everyone, whether you want to follow the romance up and downs, or if you want to learn more about the games, or what these types of people do, because I think there's some unfair stereotypes when it comes to gamers, and I think the show really showcases these cast members, just how they are every day.
Yeah,
So,
I was just going to ask you. I mean, you said you are a gamer yourself, so you're familiar with that community. But did you actually learn something about the gaming community that you didn't know before, in the process of putting this show together?
yeah, because I'm obviously a little older than some of than our couples that were on. So like this whole world of like Twitch and online streaming, you know, uh, got to know a lot more about that, which I didn't know so much about um, going into this, because um, I mostly play. I grew up on like Nintendo and stuff, and but now I'm like play Steam games and all kinds of stuff. And I'd say the show definitely made me even more of a gamer.
Hmm.
Just it kind of brought me back to gaming, and I'm definitely spending a lot more time doing it than I was before the show. So.
Oh, that's awesome. We're running out of time, but I did want to ask you one more quick question, if I could. I'm sure there were heartwarming moments, maybe some cringy moments, maybe some awkward moments. Is there a moment during the production of the show that just really stands out to you? Something behind the scenes that you wouldn't necessarily catch through the show?
Um, I mean, I think just nothing's ever gonna top seeing Amadeus and Caroline meet in person for the first time. That was just really exciting to see. It was sweet, it was nerve-wracking, scary for them, I'm sure. Um and we capture that, as well as what happens after you meet someone, um, which is basically like a blind date in a way.
Mm,
But in other ways it wasn't, because they'd gotten to know each other a lot, which I'm sure, and during this Corona lockdown, I think we've all experienced a little of this. It's like we're we're not around people as much as we, have been in the past. So you learn different ways to communicate, texting, if it's games like Animal Crossing, meeting up with your friends, at their island or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, it is a different world out there right now. And so I imagine that a lot of people, are going to be meeting online, especially through gaming, and just being able to watch this show and see what it's like for those folks who have met and gotten together and solidified as couples is just, it's fantastic. Well, Allison, I want to say thank you for joining us so much. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July weekend.
Thank you. And make sure if you've got HBO Max, look for Happily Ever Avatar. It's under the reality section in the genres.
Fantastic, Allison. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Allison Schermerhorn is the showrunner and producer of Happily Ever Avatar, which you can see. I can't say it, but you can see it on HBO Max right now. If you don't have a subscription, get one and get on there. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Lisa Marie Segarra about a bunch of stuff that's happening in gaming right now, not the least of which is NBA 2K21, and also some stuff coming from Microsoft, some stuff that you may not actually be expecting. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison. Welcome to Digital Trends Live. And now is the time where we join Lisa Marie Segarra about gaming. This is a segment that I have never gotten to host or co-host before, so I'm very excited about that. Welcome, Lisa Marie. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Are you surprised to see me?
Very exciting to see you. Well, no, because I knew you would be here, but I hope you're filling in nicely.
I'm doing the best I can. This is not an easy job, and actually, it's even more awkward when you're doing it from a tiny little room in the corner of your home. You know what I mean? But the production crew, Mike Kelsey and the gang, just make it really not that difficult. So I'm going to do the best I can. I'm actually excited about this conversation because there's some really interesting stuff happening right now. I gave a shout out earlier to Damian Lillard because he is going to be on the cover of NBA 2K1. And there's some more news around that, actually, isn't there?
Yeah, it is 2K21. So we're not back in 2001.
There was, you know what? I know. So I said NBA 2K21 when I was introing it, and then I looked at my notes and it said 2K1, and I was like, typos. What are you going to do? But NBA 2K21, we got that straight now. And what's up with this game?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. They're actually doing multiple covers, which is something that they're doing for the first time. And one is very, very special. Both current and next gen consoles will be getting a $100 Mamba Forever edition, which of course will honor the late Kobe Bryant. And, so we also do get a, new update on how the next gen will, take this over as well, which is nice if, you want to get it, but then you also plan on getting, a new PS5 or a new Xbox Series X. You don't have to worry about upgrading. There is going to be a standard $60 one though for, the PS4 and the Xbox One X and One S, which are out now. So they're going to have the Portland Trailblazers Dame Lillard on the cover for that one, which is really exciting, especially because I'm not, but most of DT is Portland based, so that's really fun as well. And
yeah, there was a collective round of applause over that when we learned about that. There's a lot of Portland pride happening there for sure.
I love it. I'm in Brooklyn, so I don't get it, but very happy for you guys.
Well,
there
thanks.
is also a $70 one for the PS5 and Xbox Series X ones, with another cover star from the New Orleans Pelicans, Zion Williamson, which is really interesting. And it's also led to speculation about whether, the PS5 and Xbox Series X games will now start at $70. We've been at the price point of $60 for a few generations now, as standard, new, especially AAA titles come out, but not exclusive to AAA. And we know things are going up, development costs are getting higher, and especially when it comes to having a more ethical way to develop these games and avoid crunch and pay overtime. I personally am happy to pay $10 extra if it means that. So we'll have to wait and see what other, price points are at, but could be fun.
That's a really interesting perspective that honestly I had not even considered. The fact that, the ethics behind game development is very much a thing and very much a concern. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of price hikes right now, whether it's streaming entertainment or possibly it looks like games. But that at least could be a sign that they're moving in the right direction. Not everything is getting more expensive. Some things are, some things aren't. I want to talk a minute, please, about the Xbox Summer Game Fest and Microsoft's next event. Seems like there's a lot going on for Microsoft and Xbox right now, leading up to the release of the next gen consoles.
Yeah, so Xbox has definitely been taking the lead with Summer Game Fest, even though it's not exclusive to them. Jeff Keighley took this over, and it's basically through July 21st and July 27th. And so what we have here is a replacement for GDC and E3, and for Xbox's latest part, not their only part, they're going to be doing 60 games with demos on the Xbox Marketplace. So basically, since we don't have the ability to try these games at E3 or in stores, this is a new way of doing it. But it's also very interesting because some of these are just very temporary. They're very, very early on, so it's a very early snippet of what we're going to get, and then they will eventually disappear in most cases. So it's also really nice because even though players can try things out at E3, there are massive lines, and same with PAX, and not everyone can afford to go, especially if you don't live in the city that it's closest to. You have to maybe fly out there. It's a lot, and so this is definitely going to open it up. I would love to see this happen more. There's definitely room, I think, for specific in-person events still, but I think accessibility is just going to help rather than hurt. So really exciting. Some of the indies have already been previewed. We also have the cult classic Destroy All Humans coming out. So there's a lot to look forward to there as well.
Yeah, and you said that they would be temporary, but I also assume that they'll be rather limited. Like you'll only be able to play a snippet of the game. Is that how it usually goes at the conferences?
Yeah, and a lot of times they make a specific E3 version. So these games aren't even done yet. So it's usually a very specific place in the world that they put you in, usually not in the very beginning where there's a lot of explanation. The one difference though too, at least for reporters, is you have someone guiding you and giving you tips. Maybe not necessarily if you're a player at the booths, but it's usually a very, very contained demo of whatever they think is the best, or will give you the best snippet of gameplay and a little bit of story without too many spoilers.
Super interesting. I'm really interested to see what kind of engagement they see and how people feel about it versus, going and standing in a long line, like you said, to play the game. We'll have to see how that turns out. We'll circle back around on that, I'm sure. Speaking of Microsoft, though, personally, I'm excited for the Series X. But I was unaware that there was a Series S. I don't know anything about that. So Microsoft got another Microsoft event coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about what we can expect from that?
Yeah, initially we were expecting to have one each month, but they for what the month of June. It's unclear whether that is because of recent events, the increased activism around Black Lives Matter, which had a lot of companies postponing their events, or if they just decided they weren't ready. So a big focus for this is speculation around what's been known as Project Lockhart, which would be a software only version of the Xbox Series X. We actually did see that PS5 is going to have one version of this, which is funny because everyone was speculating about Xbox, and then PlayStation came out and said we're actually doing it too, and ended up making the announcement early if that comes to be. So other ideas being floated around are, the Xbox Series S. So you have the Xbox One X and the One S that eventually came out. And if they're going with this titling, then, the Xbox Series X and S would make sense. And, you have that concept art right there. It's like a mini fridge. If the Xbox Series X is a fridge, the Series S is the mini fridge companion.
I love that. I was reading a little bit about it before we got started with the show, and it looks like the specs don't even match up with what we've got with the Xbox One X or One S now, but apparently it could still be a step forward. Can you explain how?
Yeah, so for example, if you are wondering about teraflops or a solid state drive, you don't have to worry as much about that when it's just software and you don't have the same components and hardware. It definitely does matter, but it's just running very differently. And that's also why it can be much smaller. And in general, it's also a step forward in the way that people play games, I feel. It's interesting because when the Xbox One was coming out and they, floated this idea of more digital first, people were very much not on board, but I think the consumer base has really caught up. And but it also does have a more modern CPU. So even though those specific specs aren't lining up, overall, it's just a very different leap in hardware. It's a new generation or multiple generations forward. So it's definitely going to be really exciting.
Well, Lisa Marie, I could talk about like Xbox all day long, but we need to move along. Let's switch over to PlayStation. Looks like PlayStation is making some kind of a commitment toward indie games. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it also comes after, Nintendo's definitely been focusing more on indie games. And even PlayStation's more latest events, the State of Plays, they're not necessarily indie games, but they have certainly focused more on less AAA games or less of their main titles. Not entirely, but you're seeing more like Iron Man VR, which is VR and not necessarily their biggest titles that they come out with. And you're seeing other games that are just a little bit more unique. Even in their latest event for the PS5, a lot of the games that they were showing off, you did have Spider-Man Miles Morales, you did have something from Bethesda and things like that. But you also had like this really cute cat game called Stray in a World of Robots, which feels very much more indie-esque and just a very different type of gameplay. So it seems like they're making their commitment to indies more official, not just focusing on them in State of Play and other events, but having its own banner under PlayStation Indies. Not exactly the most unique title, but that's okay. And so you have some really big PlayStation execs. You have Shuhei which I apologize if I'm not saying that right. I don't think I've ever heard it live, but he also made a great point about how games are getting tougher to develop and indies have a really big future, and that's very true. And I think that they've seen how this is just a really smart way forward. It's a smart way in terms of broadening the scope of what games can be, what stories they can tell, and also they can sometimes be more affordable. So, especially with coronavirus and the recession and layoffs, people still need an escape. And especially when movie theaters are shut down, you can't go out to the bar with your friends. Gaming with your friends or even gaming alone can be a really good escape, but it also costs money. And so that could be a really good way forward too. Not all indies are cheaper than AAA titles, but they can be.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a boon for folks who are feeling, a financial pinch right now. Well, all of this has been extremely interesting, and I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us once again, Lisa Marie, and I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July weekend.
Thank you. You too. Hope the rest of the show goes very smoothly for you.
We'll see. We got a little bit to go left. Thanks so much, Lisa Marie. That's Lisa Marie Segarra with the weekly gaming segment. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Rick Marshall, a segment on Real News, which involves Hamilton coming to Disney Plus, among many other things. We'll be right back.
Proof that we're living in a sci-fi future, I've got 3 words for you: robot talent agency. It might sound totally ridiculous, but believe it or not, this is now a real thing that exists in the same world that you and I currently inhabit. I'm Drew Prindle, and this is Robots Everywhere, a show where we chronicle the slow but steady takeover of our robot overlords and show you how they're making their way into practically every facet of modern life. Okay, so back to this robot talent agency. It's a startup based in Seattle, Washington, and it's called the Agency, like AI agency. Get it? It's whatever. Anywho, in order to understand what the company does and how it works, it's helpful if you understand how a normal human talent agent operates and makes money. So let's say you are an aspiring actor with a strong jawline and a rockin' handlebar mustache, and to advance your career, you move to California and you hire an agent. That agent would then act as a sort of middleman between you and all of the movie studios and casting companies in Hollywood, and would use their connections to those studios to help you find acting gigs. So that way, if Paramount Pictures puts out a call and says, hey, we need somebody to co-star in a lighthearted rom-com about rival biker gangs that fall in love, your agent would hear about it and give you a call and be like, hey Chet, I think I found a role for you. Would you make out with Hulk Hogan on camera for $6 million? To which you would obviously reply, hell yeah, brother, and then go in for an audition. If all goes well, you would get the gig, the movie studio would get the talent they need, and then your talent agent would get a small cut of that $6 million for coordinating everything. Everybody wins. This robot talent agency works in almost the exact same way. The only difference is that instead of humans, they represent robots, or more accurately, robotics companies that make the robots themselves. Seriously, that's the only difference. To be perfectly clear about what this company is and what it does, I want to stress that it isn't like some kind of practical matchmaker that solves serious real-world problems by finding the right robot for the job. For example, it's not like somebody would call this company and be like, hey, I have dirty carpets, can you help me out? And then the agency would be like, oh, I've got just the robot for you, have you heard of Roomba? It's not like that at all. The agency was specifically formed to help robots become entertainers events. This company legitimately represents robots exactly like they're real flesh and blood entertainers. Now that's definitely a far out idea for a business, but the company's founders think that there's a ton of untapped potential in connecting the dots between the entertainment industry and the robotics industry. But don't take my word for it either. We actually had these guys, the founders of the agency, on Digital Trends Live the other day to talk about their vision, an appearance which they made in proper techie fashion by patching themselves in as avatars in virtual reality.
Through history, robots have played an important role in kind of media and entertainment, but they've always been people in costumes. They've always been puppets, or more modern-wise, they've been computer graphics and 3D renders. So the transition that's happening here is the same way that you cast a person in a movie is now going to be the same way that you cast a robot in a movie. We're really looking to have people use and cast robots like 0 and 1, our Boston Dynamics Spot robots, to just be fully practical. It's like that's never been done before in the history of film ever.
Now I realize that might sound totally ridiculous, but it's kind of not when you think about it. Take Spot, the infamous quadruped robot from Boston Dynamics, for example. One of Spot's most recent videos from late last year is already up to 6.5 million views on YouTube. An earlier video of Spot dancing to Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars racked up almost 6.8 million. Then there's this video of one Spot that opens a door for another Spot robot, which got 34.4 million views. I mean, sure, it's YouTube and, it's internet points and whatever, but like, that video of Kanye West walking into a street sign, that only got 8.4 million views. Clearly, robots have some entertainment value. And Spot is just the most recent example. There are actually tons of other instances in the not so distant past where machines have acted as entertainers and generated quite a lot of buzz. A good example of this is IBM's supercomputer Watson. In 2011, the company set up Watson to compete in a game of Jeopardy against Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter, two of the show's greatest champions. Not only did Watson crush these two guys, but Jeopardy's ratings soared during that time, and the whole thing helped IBM solidify its reputation as a leader in the world of artificial intelligence. A few years later, Google pulled a similar stunt with its DeepMind AlphaGo AI, which took on and beat Go champion Lee Sedol in a series of games held in South Korea and streamed on the internet. 200 million people watched these matches online. And with that in mind, it's pretty clear that machines have the potential to be entertainers, so maybe these guys behind this robot talent agency are actually onto something. Ultimately, time will tell if this is just a ridiculous business idea that'll eventually flop, or we're actually witnessing the birth of an entirely new industry that'll be huge in a few years. But regardless of how this plays out, it's still just a good gauge of how far the field of robotics has come in the past decade or so. If we've got robot talent agencies popping up now, what kinds of weird and wild robotic businesses will pop up in the next few years? All I can say is hold on to your hats, people, because robots are about to be everywhere.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison. This is Digital Trends Live, and something Greg Nibbler would have done that I managed to mess up, was tease robots everywhere. If you were just watching, you saw Drew Prindle doing an excellent series on robots and how they're bleeding into every little nook and cranny of our lives. And I want to let you know that the next episode, that was episode 1, premiered on YouTube last week. The next episode is premiering on, I believe it's Saturday at 9:15 Pacific time. So you don't want to miss that. Robots Everywhere. Episode 2 is on its way. Drew is doing a fantastic job with those, and you definitely want to check them out. But right now, I want to transition to a discussion of real news with Rick Marshall, who joins us from the East Coast. Rick, how are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going okay. Are you surprised to see me? Because I'm surprised to be here.
I am thrilled to see you. I don't know if surprise is the right word. I am thrilled.
Oh, that's good. That's good, Rick. Thank you very much. Listen, we got to talk about Hamilton in a minute, but I want to start with a show that is near and dear to my heart. You and I, without divulging our ages, I know for a fact that you and I were both watching this show as it was airing on MTV back in the day. Beavis and Butthead is back. What's going on with this, Rick?
Well, yeah, Beavis and Butthead is apparently back. Comedy Central has ordered 2 seasons of a new sort of reimagined version of Beavis and Butthead. It's going to have Beavis and Butthead in the modern world, sort of dealing with all of that stuff. And yeah, it's coming back.
That's crazy. Like I didn't even see this coming. Do you know, is it going to like look more or less the same? Or are they going to try and modernize the look? And obviously it's not coming to MTV. Is it going to Comedy Central? Is that right?
Yes, Comedy Central is getting it. They haven't released any sort of early looks or what the animation is going to be like. Mike Judge's animation has really sort of evolved since Beavis and Butthead, to put it lightly. So I'm sure that's going to look a little bit different now, but I suspect it's going to have the same irreverent and sort of Beavis and Butthead style humor.
Yeah, it's a little bit crass, and I think that's what we loved about it, to be honest with you. Well, that's kind of exciting. We'll definitely want to follow along with what's happening there. Hopefully we get like some sort of a preview in the not too distant future. Sounds like things are very much in the earlier stages. But knowing Mike Judge, he's probably already down the trail on that one. What I want to talk about next is HBO Max. There's always something going on there, whether it's good or bad. Something's happening there. I know that there was a lot of disappointment in the fact that they kind of did a bait and switch with the DC superhero movies. What's the latest on this right now, Rick?
Well, HBO Max sort of reversed course on things, and where they had announced that they were pulling a lot of the DC Universe superhero movies off of HBO Max on July 1st, there was a lot of public outcry about that, because people felt like it was, as I said, the bait and switch, where they advertised the platform as having one-stop shopping for all the DC superhero films, and then announced that they were leaving July 1st. So HBO Max has reversed course on this. They announced that pretty much all of the DC superhero movies that were going to be removed on July 1st will now be on the service through December. After that, it's anybody's guess as to what they're planning to do. But if you wanted a service that was more like Disney Plus, in the way it has all of the Marvel movies in one place, it looks like HBO Max is realizing that maybe that's what they should offer too.
Yeah, I understand they're reversing course after they saw a lot of public, backlash on this. The outcry was huge. But just pushing it out to December, I mean, does that seem to you like ultimately they're going to go with the plan that they originally had? Maybe they're just delaying it right now?
It sort of feels that way. I think they're just sort of feeling it out and seeing whether people are going to keep watching all of these DC superhero movies over the next couple of months, whether there is, measurable sort of, interest in them and keeping them on there, in perpetuity, and just having them there like Disney Plus does with its Marvel films. So, if you want the HBO Max to keep those DC superhero movies, I guess you better make sure to watch them over the next couple of months.
Yeah, interesting. By removing the supply, you increase the demand, sort of thing. That's what Disney used to do, and they changed course. Interesting to me that HBO would look to kind of go backwards there. But well, like you said, we'll have to see what happens come December. Though it's good to know that they will be there for the rest of the year, because I do think we're going to be sitting at home and doing a lot of streaming for the foreseeable future. Which brings us to the next point: what do we want to be streaming this week and even this month, Rick. Hamilton is kind of a big deal, and it's coming to Disney Plus.
Yes, yes. Well, Disney didn't throw away its shot on this one. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh man.
Well, yes, yeah. Disney basically pulled one of the biggest projects it can possibly add to Disney Plus that isn't Star Wars or Marvel related by getting Hamilton. They originally were going to put this recording of the original cast performing Hamilton on into theaters in October 2021, and then later decided that they're just going to send it straight to streaming, and that was sort of a product of the fact that everyone's at home. Theaters are going to be closed for a long time. So are both movie theaters and stage productions. So they're putting it right onto Disney Plus as of July 3rd, tomorrow. So this is a really huge, huge thing for them, and I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. The fact of the matter is, I have not seen the show, even the touring production with a different cast. I haven't seen it. And you answered a question there that I had: is Lin-Manuel Miranda in this? Is it that original cast? And it looks like it very much is. That's super, super exciting. And I think going straight to Disney Plus instead of going out to the theaters, definitely the smart move. And when does that come out? When can you start streaming it?
So Friday, July 3rd, tomorrow, it's going to be on Disney Plus. They haven't really, put out the exact time yet. Disney Plus is usually sort of uncertain about exact times sometimes for their releases, but it'll be there. There's no telling how long it will be there too. So make sure to watch it if you're interested in it. And I've seen the touring production of Hamilton, and this is pretty much your only shot at seeing the original cast performing it. Like, I loved the touring production of it, but I am extremely excited to see this with the original cast. It's going to match up with the soundtrack, the voices you hear on that. There are just so many reasons that this is a great thing to watch if you are even remotely interested in Hamilton and finding out what the hype is about.
Absolutely. I personally plan on watching it with my family. Though it does raise some questions. I mean, as I'm watching it with my kids, this question of its accuracy in terms of historical terms. And you've actually written about that. You've written a couple of different articles that you can read at Digital Trends right now in advance of it coming out on Disney Plus. Can you tell me a little bit about those two articles you've got?
Absolutely. Well, I've already written one that is out there right now about why you really should watch this, even if you haven't seen it live yet. There are a lot of good reasons for it. Some of them might seem obvious to people, but you know what? I've had this question asked of me so many times over the last couple of weeks. Should I watch it if I haven't seen it live? Should I wait for it live? Before I watch it on the Disney version? Absolutely, you should. And I explained all of the reasons why that's the case. And then also coming up soon on Digital Trends, I have sort of a breakdown of some of the big differences between history and what happens in the musical, because that's come up a lot. Like, is it historically accurate? There's some things that are obviously not historically accurate about it because it is a musical and a stage production, but it does hew pretty close to what happened in history in a great many ways, and diverges in some really interesting ways too. So you can read that on Digital Trends.
Fantastic. We will definitely do that. We spent a little bit of time on Hamilton. We got to get through a couple of things pretty quickly here. There's some more stuff to watch. There's a new show coming out on Netflix called Desperados. What's the deal with this?
So yeah, there are just a couple of things to check out. It's kind of a light streaming week outside of Hamilton, but on Netflix, Desperados. It's a new original film. It's an original comedy, and it's a female-led ensemble led by Saturday Night Live's Nasim Pedrad. It's a sort of one of those raunchy female-led films that has a group of women go off on a road trip to Mexico to sort of steal and recover the Nasim Pedrad's character's boyfriend's phone before he, gets a message on it that she mistakenly left for him. And then the other big thing is Hannah. Over on Amazon, Hannah comes back for season 2. And this is a great series. It's sort of underappreciated. It is based on the 2011 film with the same name, and it's really good. Check it out. It's about a teenage girl who was sort of genetically experimented on to become a super soldier, and now she's sort of out to take down this secret organization that experimented on her. If you haven't checked it out, do so. It's sort of an under the radar, really good show if you like drama, espionage, and just teenage girl kicking butt.
That's awesome. I was completely unaware of that particular show, and that's like right up my alley. So I'm definitely going to have to check that out. That's fantastic, Rick. It may be a light streaming week, but what's coming out is pretty heavy hitter stuff, I would have to say. Thank you so much for being here and chatting with us. I appreciate your time, and it's good to see you. Have a great 4th of July weekend.
You too. It's been great chatting with you.
Awesome. That's Rick Marshall with his weekly Real News segment. And at this time, I believe it's time for me to say goodbye. I don't know, actually, for sure. Somebody's going to yell at me if it isn't, but I'm going to act like it is time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if that's your thing, so that you know when we're going live and coming to you with all the weekly tech news that comes out day by day. There's a lot to cover. We try and stay on top of it, keep you informed, and let you know what's important, what you should be paying attention to. It's been my pleasure to sub in for Mr. Greg Nibbler, who is celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, Greg. I hope he's having a fun time at the beach. We will be taking a break tomorrow in observance of the July 4th holiday. So join us again on Monday, where we'll see you right back here at Digital Trends Live.